Book 2, Preparing for Psychic Work. As you begin your journey through this course, it is essential to get your body, mind, and emotions in the right state to increase your psychic and intuitive sensitivity. The first section of this part of the book will be dedicated to helping you do just that. Everything in the universe is made up of matter, the physical stuff, and energy. Physics is the branch of science focused on studying matter and energy. As science delved more deeply into these concepts, we have discovered that matter and energy are actually more interchangeable than we used to think. You can think of them like two sides of the same coin. Most of what we see as physical reality and solid structures, like walls and our bodies, is actually just groups of tiny particles vibrating and bouncing off each other slowly. On the other hand, the air that we breathe and often think of as nothing is just similar tiny particles vibrating and bouncing off each other more quickly. Everything around you has energy and vibration, or frequency if you prefer, even if you cannot see it with your eyes or hold it in your hands. Psychic work is tapping into and sensing that energy. Thoughts and emotions have energy that can be flowing, uplifting, and positive, or stuck, heavy, and negative. A lot of us are carrying around mental and emotional baggage from our past experiences, as well as the ongoing stress of our daily lives. This emotional baggage accumulates over time and can result in mental illness, physical illness, and blocked psychic ability. It's essential that we clear out old stuck energy to allow for the free flowing of your intuitive gifts. On top of mental and emotional health, your physical health will also dictate how well you can connect to higher vibration energy as it comes through. If our bodies are busy detoxifying and dealing with inflammation, then we cannot divert the resources needed to clearly sense energy. One of the most important things you can do before getting started is to begin cleansing your body and mind in preparation for tuning in. In preparation, I recommend getting a journal or sheets of loose paper and a pen or pencil to help you with many of the exercises in the book. Fair warning, a lot of what I recommend in these early chapters is difficult and can be frustrating, emotionally charged, and sometimes even overwhelming. Just take each step as you feel ready and work your way through at your own pace. If you get bogged down in any area, please reach out for help. For emotional work, you can contact a psychologist or psychotherapist near you to help guide you through the parts you're getting stuck on. Or sit down with a really good friend or spiritual advisor and talk it out. For mental work, you can do the same. Take up yoga, connect with a meditation group, a spiritual group, or anyone else you trust. I have provided many techniques for doing the work in the following chapters, but there are also a wide variety of resources out there with other methods and ideas if my recommendations aren't working for you. The goal is that the following chapters will help you fully prepare your body, mind, and spirit to help give you the clarity required to allow your psychic abilities to come through. The first step is getting your body in balance. Preparing the physical body. Diet and lifestyle preparation. While we are all aware that taking care of our body is essential to our health and well-being, did you know that it is also central to your psychic ability? Contrary to popular belief, psychic ability isn't centered in the brain, like our minds, but instead is localized within our body. There's some really interesting new research on the gut brain that I have hopes may one day explain how this sense actually works. In short, scientists have discovered that the gut is actually responsible for producing the vast majority of the neurochemicals used to regulate our brains and mood, like serotonin, the happy neurotransmitter. Because of this, it has been suggested that there's a sort of second brain in the gut that researchers have called the gut brain. The health of our body, especially the health of our diet, directly affects the health of our gut brain. This, in turn, affects our ability to tap into our psychic gifts. That's why when getting started in this work, it is essential to make some simple changes to help ensure you get the most that you can out of this book. One of the most important things you must do to clear your body in preparation is to get your diet on track. This does not mean that you have to eat perfectly or fast for days on end, although these have been used as tools in many cultures for centuries as a means of accelerating the advancement of psychic gifts. What is important is to remove foods that you know bog down or trouble your system. Each person's food sensitivities are unique, so if you don't know yours, consider seeing a naturopathic doctor who can help you discover your hidden food sensitivities. If all else fails, and you wish to get started sooner rather than later, then at the very least, be sure to remove the following from your diet as a basic way to begin. Things to remove: recreational drugs, especially mind-altering ones like marijuana or opiates; tobacco; alcohol; caffeine. Have no more than 1 cup daily, but having none is ideal. Wheat and gluten. That's bread, pasta, cookies, cakes, flour. Corn and corn-based products like popcorn, corn chips, high fructose corn syrup, and so on. This eliminates many processed foods. Dairy, such as milk, yogurt, butter, cheese, ice cream, sour cream, etc. Refined sugars, such as table sugar, sucrose, glucose, fructose, maltose, pretty much any ingredient that ends in ose, and most processed foods. Soy and soy products, such as tofu, edamame, soy sauce, etc. If you can focus your diet on fresh fruits and vegetables with smaller amounts of meats and whole grains other than wheat, this will greatly benefit your abilities. Drinking plenty of water to flush out old toxins and keep your body hydrated is also a fantastic idea. Aim to get at least 2.5 liters or 10 cups of clean filtered water daily. Once you're well hydrated, it's a great idea to incorporate some exercise to get your blood flowing, and if possible, an exercise that makes you sweat for at least 15 minutes every day. This doesn't have to be running or anything crazy. Anytime you can get outside in nature will help. If you can only do jumping jacks and calisthenics or yoga at home, that's still great. If you don't like strenuous exercise or your current health won't allow for it, then even getting in a sauna to sweat for 15 minutes each day and going for a brief walk or sit in nature can significantly improve your ability to focus and receive. All of the above changes do not need to be maintained forever, but is very useful when you are trying to initially tap in and attune to your gifts. To delve more deeply into your abilities, changing your diet and lifestyle for longer periods of time can make a huge difference in how much psychic return you get for your effort. The effect of drugs. Regular recreational and over-the-counter drug use is quite commonplace in today's society. Unfortunately, these drugs can have unintended side effects that dull your psychic abilities. Here are some general categories of drugs that can affect your abilities. Stimulants. Examples are caffeine, cocaine, amphetamines, such as speed or Adderall, methylphenidate, Ritalin, and MDMA, can all significantly impact your ability to sense energy. Consider how you feel when you take too much. Most of you will be familiar with the sensation of being over-caffeinated. Stimulants prevent you from properly grounding, leaving you feeling disconnected, shaky, and out of sorts. Avoiding stimulant use for at least 3 days before trying to tune in will significantly improve your sensing ability. If you are addicted to stimulants, you may have to perform a longer washout period of 1 to 2 weeks before continuing, as withdrawal symptoms can also interrupt your gifts. Another category is depressants. Examples are alcohol, marijuana, anti-anxiety medications, benzodiazepines, barbiturates, and GABA can all sedate your senses and disconnect you. Like stimulants, depressants unground you and detach you from reality and energy, inhibiting your psychic sense. Another option is analgesics or painkillers. Examples are morphine, hydromorphone, codeine, Tylenol 3s, fentanyl, oxycodone, which is Percocet, and oxycodone, which is OxyContin, can all significantly reduce sensitivity and promote detachment and loss of grounding. If you require these medications to manage your pain, you may want to wait until you have resolved the underlying condition and can reduce or remove these medications from your life before moving forward with this book. If you use them in the minimal dose required to reduce your pain to manageable levels, then the effect is less dramatic. But unfortunately, any recreational or excessive use will make you work twice as hard to get half as far in your psychic work. Other types of drugs, some examples are cold and flu medications, stomach medications, over-the-counter pain medications can all also affect your psychic abilities. Usually these are only used temporarily, so you can compare how well you sense while using them, and then again when you're off them once more, to give you an idea of how much each particular drug can affect your psychic gifts. A note on required medications. Ultimately, you need to take any medications that have been prescribed to you to help protect and balance your health. By no means is the above listing a request for you to stop any prescription medication recommended by your doctor or pharmacist that you may currently be taking. If you need it, please take it. If you would like to discuss alternatives or ways to fix the underlying conditions to help you no longer require your medications, I highly recommend getting in to see a naturopathic doctor near you to get working on a different approach to bringing your health into balance. But of course, I'm a bit biased. But no matter what, your health has to be your number one priority. And if your medications are the best way you have to maintain your health at this time, then please continue to take them as prescribed. Book 2, Section 2, Preparing the Emotional Body. Clearing old emotional junk from the body is absolutely essential to deeply tapping your psychic abilities. Unfortunately, one of the biggest blocks to fully sensing the energy around you is your own emotional backlog. Repressed emotions sit in the body and clog up psychic ability. In my practice and teaching, I like to explain emotions as shit. Just like shit, emotions happen in the body whether we like it or not. If we're alive, we're making shit and we're making emotions. We like to believe that we control our emotions and our shit with our mind, but we don't. The only thing that our mind controls is our anal sphincter, bumhole. Either it opens and lets you shit, or it remains tightly closed and holds all your shit in. The same goes for its ability to regulate our emotions. Either we let our emotions out and express them, or we hold them in and we fill up with shit. If we constantly avoid releasing and expressing our emotions, aka shitting, we fill up with shit. Over time, the shit level gets so huge that your body can't hold anymore. The level of shit that your body can maximally hold is unique to you and your situation. No matter what, when you reach that point and are full of emotional shit, you only have 3 options. Option 1. You leak out your mouth. People with this problem will sound mad, sad, negative, or anxious with everything that they say. It's like they're spraying shit in your face every time they talk to you. You may feel that they are always dumping their shit on you. If you are a mouth leaker, then over time people will avoid you. You will probably frequently feel rejected and may only have a series of friends who are happy to talk shit with you when they're in a bad place, but who suddenly disappear when life gets good again. Option 2. You leak out your bum. When you're not able to control your overflowing emotions, it can lead to inappropriately releasing emotion in public situations. I call this shitting your pants, and it often leads to alienating those around you, or even time in a psychiatric facility or jail, depending on the intensity and timing of your release. Downward leakers can be abusive, volatile, and erratic if they turn their emotions outwards, or they can be extremely depressed, self-destructive, and/or suicidal if they turn their emotions inwards. Option 3. You get sick. I call us the Tight Ass Club, and I believe I could have petitioned to be the president back in the day. If you successfully hold your emotional shit inside your body, eventually your body is so full of shit that it starts to fall apart. You can't steep your organs in shit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and expect to remain healthy. Emotional tight-ass syndrome is one common contributing factor to those mysterious chronic illnesses that the medical community can't seem to solve, such as chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disease, and most mental emotional conditions, especially anxiety and depression. Great, Katie. So I'm full of shit. Now what? Now we learn how to get rid of the shit so your body can go back to its natural, healthy state. In addition to making your life better overall, this will also free up your psychic ability, which is the ultimate goal of this book. Emotions in the body. Pretty much all of us over the age of 5 have repressed emotions trapped in our body. Even those of us who work on it regularly will miss the occasional thing. I don't think this is something we can ever perfect. We are all human. The key is just to keep trying and never be fooled into thinking you're done. Okay, Katie, if health is the body's natural state, then why are we all so screwed up? In order to fit into society and not end up in jail, we have to learn from a young age how to hold back and repress our emotions and emotional behaviors. When we're born, we release emotions perfectly. If you've ever watched a toddler completely melt down in a full tantrum, then you have seen perfect and uninhibited emotional release. Then we are taught by those around us and society at large that freely releasing emotions is not acceptable. Maybe we're punished, yelled at, given timeouts, or ignored. No matter how we got there, we each learn to hold back our natural emotional response. Take the example of getting angry. Picture an angry child, yelling, stomping, and hitting. Now picture an angry adult, grinding their teeth, clenching their jaw, and holding their fists by their side with rigid arms and a red face. You can see how a natural and innate physical response to emotion has been translated into a tension pattern held in the body. If this emotion is repeated and repressed over and over again, then the tension is repeated and reinforced until muscles knot and shorten, and the poor person begins to suffer from physical pain, such as tension headaches, high blood pressure, stiff neck and shoulders, jaw pain, TMJ dysfunction, and even joint pain in their hands and fingers. On the positive side, we can use these tension and pain patterns in the body to help guide us to what emotions are trapped, and also how to release them and return to health. See the chapter on clearing emotions from the body for more information on this topic. But I've been going through therapy for years, Katie. I know my shit already. Yeah, I'm sure that you do. The difference between counseling and what I'm discussing in this section of the book is the difference between shitting and understanding what food you ate that made your shit. Both are very important, but are also very different. That's why some of you have been going to therapy for decades, and while you're better, you're not better. You may just find that this is the missing link that will get you the rest of the way there. You just need to actually release the shit that you've come to understand. Therapy is incredibly helpful for sorting through our mental sphere. I like to look at therapy as picking through your shit for undigested bits, and it helps us to understand how we got to the emotional state that we're in. And I truly believe that absolutely all of us need counseling at least a few times in our lives. But I'd suggest doing it regularly as part of your healthy self-care routine. In the same spectrum, I recommend regularly physically releasing your emotions from your body as well. In order to keep a balanced body and an open psychic ability, regular emotional release is absolutely essential. Many of us have been emotionally constipated for so long, we'll use phrases such as, I don't really get angry. I just think it through and realize it's not worth it, or I'm being silly. That's a direct quote from me in 2007. Another example, yeah, sometimes I feel like crying, but then it just goes away. Or I take sleeping pills, Gravol, or marijuana so I can quiet my mind enough to fall asleep at night. Or chocolate, gambling, shopping, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs can fix any problem, at least for a while. Or I'm just stressed out. I just can't shut my brain off no matter what I do. I worry all the time. If you don't think that you have repressed emotions, then I strongly encourage you to do the sitting in stillness exercise that follows. Even if you do know that you have repressed emotions, I still recommend giving it a try to see what comes up. Even after doing it hundreds of times and clearing my emotional shit regularly, I still have new and interesting stuff come up all the time. Sitting in stillness. Sitting in stillness is a fantastic exercise for discovering your buried emotions. Most of us run around from task to task, keeping ourselves so busy that we never hold still long enough for our body to get a chance to clear repressed crap. If you ever make an adult sit still without stimulation for more than a few minutes, we will start to create things to do to stay busy. This is not accidental. It is our subconscious way of avoiding some seriously uncomfortable shit. Once you've gathered enough emotional crap, adults aren't capable of getting truly bored. If you've ever seen a young child who has exhausted all entertainment, then you've seen true boredom. Boredom looks like a limp body draped across the furniture and a long, slow whine of, "Mom, I'm so bored." Now, picture a bored adult, perched on the edge of our seat, tapping our hands on the arms of the chair, and maybe rocking back and forth while we look around the room for something to do, assuming we haven't already distracted ourselves with our phones or devices. What emotion would you apply to this picture? Boredom? If we were to dig deeper, that behavior looks more like anxiety. Anxiety is a form of fear. So what are we so afraid of? When we sit in quiet stillness, we give our body an opening to throw our repressed emotional junk back up in our face. When you first sit still, your mind will try to distract you. You'll make lists, remember things you have to do, and even make up new things that you suddenly need to do. It's important that you just sit through this time and not get up or get distracted, no matter how urgent the feeling of anxiety becomes. You can write down everything that you need to remember when you're done. After the first minute or two, your brain will run out of things to distract you with, and it will start to slow down and go quiet. If you're a high anxiety person, this can take a few extra minutes. As soon as your brain leaves a space, your body will begin to stir with emotion. I like to think of this like our body saying, "Oh, thank God, you're finally shutting up? Good. Here, deal with all this shit you dumped in me." And I picture it shoving our emotional poop back up into our heads to be acknowledged and hopefully dealt with once and for all. The hardest part at this point is to just let it happen. Let whatever emotion comes to the surface flow freely out of you. You don't even need to know where it's coming from. You just need to let it out. If you can't do that yet, then just make a note of what emotion is coming up. We can start the process simply by acknowledging which emotions are trapped. Acknowledgement is a fantastic first step to healing. If you do feel ready to release your emotions, then please do. You can do whatever comes naturally to you, or if you're stuck, then read on to the following chapters for some suggestions on ways to release. One of the most common places to get lost and distracted doing this exercise is during the list making and overthinking at the beginning. It is common for anxiety to be the first emotion that surfaces, and because it feels so uncomfortable, it's very tempting to just bail on this exercise before really getting into it. My best tip for this is to use a technique commonly recommended in meditation practice. After all, this exercise is a very loose and sloppy form of meditation. In meditation, we try to be an outside observer in our own minds. Instead of getting swept up in the turmoil going on inside, try to see it as an outside observer and just watch your thoughts. If you can view your mind as separate from yourself, you will find the quick spinning thoughts and list making amusing rather than all encompassing. We don't want you to do this with the emotions, though. We want those to be fully acknowledged and released. Read on for how to do that. Practical exercise, sitting in stillness. Find a space where you can sit in silence without distraction. Try to stare at a blank wall or close your eyes. Avoid TV, radio, other people, and distractions. Tell others in your home that you cannot be disturbed for at least 15 minutes. If you can't quiet your surroundings, a good pair of earplugs can work wonders. We want you to be completely alone with your body and mind. Get into a comfortable position so the physical sensations in your body won't distract you. You can lay down as long as you will not fall asleep. If you think you may fall asleep, then please remain seated. Set a timer on your phone or your watch and put it aside. I recommend setting it for 3 to 5 minutes for your first attempt. If you're feeling really ambitious, you can try for 10 to 15 minutes. If you're using your phone, then make sure it's on airplane mode, the little airplane icon, or do not disturb, the little crescent moon icon, so you won't be disturbed during the exercise. Avoid the temptation to get up and do things you think of or to start writing down your lists. We don't want to get sucked into the manipulation of our subconscious minds. Instead, keep a pad of paper and pen nearby and promise yourself that as soon as the exercise is over, you will be able to jot down notes and lists as needed. Start the timer, get comfortable, and try to just observe what happens. Witness your thoughts and emotions as an outside observer. Release any emotions that you need to release as they come up. Cry if you need to cry. Wiggle if you need to wiggle. Scream, grunt, growl, moan, or punch pillows if you need to punch pillows. Try to just let things flow. If you don't feel as though anything needs to flow at this time, try to just check into your body to get a sense of any tension patterns or other sensations that you feel. When the timer goes off, feel free to jot down any notes to self or interesting observations from what came up. You can also just keep on crying, punching pillows, and releasing until you feel complete. Don't forget to turn your phone back on to regular service mode after you've finished. I recommend repeating this exercise at least a few times a week until you are no longer surprised by what comes up for you. Then you can spread your sessions out to once a week and so on. I would continue them at least once a month ongoing, even after years. Life goes on and we always gather new emotional junk. If we keep checking in, then we can avoid our shit building up over time. Psychic abilities start in our body, not our minds. Keeping yourself as clear as possible of built-up emotional junk is the fastest way to tap into and boost your psychic abilities. Clearing emotions from the body. Once we figure out what emotional junk we're holding in our bodies, we can begin the process of clearing at least some of it out. Whenever I teach the course, this is the part that everyone finds incredibly awkward at first, and then eventually they come to absolutely love. Before I dive into that, I want to be clear that the goal of this work is not to undo our social learning. It will never be acceptable to fully emotionally shit in public. We still have to keep our emotions in check when dealing with others or when we are in public. I don't expect you to start throwing tantrums at work or to begin screaming at your family when you're angry. In fact, that would break the one and only rule of emotional release. The one rule of emotional release: no harming any living things. This includes you, plants, insects, animals, and people. Or, as I also like to say this, we are not monkeys. We do not fling our shit at others. You are more than welcome to destroy any inanimate object that you please. Just be sure that it isn't someone else's treasured possession, because that counts as hurting them. Break every dish in your house, or rip up all of your papers or your phone book. As long as you clean up the glass after so it's safe, you're good to go. For you Wiccan folks out there, you'll recognize the guiding phrase that's one of the main tenets of Wicca, which is a pagan religion for those of you unfamiliar. And the tenet is, "An ye harm none, do what ye will." Now that we've set the guidelines and you've spent the time sitting in stillness to connect with your emotions, we can move into figuring out how to clear your shit. We know that our emotional history, or at least part of it that wasn't released at the time, is trapped now in our physical body, creating patterns of tension and possibly even physical pain. We can use these patterns as the perfect guide to help us understand what emotions are trapped and even how to release them. Here are some examples of emotional symptoms and how to clear them. Headaches and jaw tension. This can be cleared by whatever vocal release works for you. Some ideas are singing, screaming, yelling, growling, grunting, moaning, shrieking, name-calling, and swearing. It can be prevented by doing your best to always speak your truth in the moment. Shoulder and neck tension. There are a few ways to work on this. Some examples are punching pillows or a punching bag, flailing your arms around in the air, or taking a baseball bat to old furniture, to a snowbank, or even to an old car tire. Be sure to research how to punch and swing without causing yourself injury. If you tend to have this type of tension but do not fist up your hands, then you may actually be a slap slammer instead. This means you may benefit most from slapping pillows or other soft objects, or by slamming doors or throwing things. Remember the only rule to emotion release: no harming yourself or any living things. Chest tension, like a knot inside. If this is a tight knot or ball sensation, it can be cleared by vocal release, such as screaming, yelling, and swearing, and can be prevented by speaking your truth in the moment. Chest heaviness, pressing in or pulling downwards in your chest and upper belly, can be cleared by crying and sobbing loudly and freely. Grief work may also be required, and if so, see the chapter on clearing grief for more information. Belly tightness, clenching, or fluttering. Uncomfortable belly sensations are best cleared by creative release. Paint, draw, color, sculpt, dance, sing, or do whatever creative activity resonates with you. Restless legs and tapping toes. To clear emotion trapped in the legs, you can run, walk, stomp, skip, or dance. Try a few different activities to see which one works best for you. If none of these symptoms resonates with you right off the top, don't panic. Some of you have spent decades avoiding connection with your body and the sensations within. Our society is strongly focused on the mental and intellectual aspects, and consequently many people have lost touch with even the most basic sensations inside their own bodies. You'd be surprised the number of people that I treat who are not only unaware of any physical expression of emotion in their body, they can't even tell when they're hungry or thirsty. If this type of disconnection is your experience in this moment, know that you're not alone, and there's definitely still hope. If you have sat in stillness, or even if you have just thought a lot about it, or had some good counseling in your lifetime, then you probably have an idea of some of the emotions trapped in your body, even if you can't connect with the sensations yet. If you know the emotions, then there are common release methods that could likely work for you. Here are a list of emotions and the activities that can help clear them. Fear, aka anxiety, panic, stress, worry. Fear is best cleared by primal screaming. I recommend doing this in your car when you're alone, outside alone in nature, into a pillow, or underwater in a pool or bath. Remember, scaring an unprepared bystander counts as harm. Running. Need I say more? Punching pillows or a punching bag. Just be careful not to hurt yourself. If you have to research how to throw a proper punch before starting, please do. And finally, walking your fears to the end. If you've never done this before, check out the chapter on conquering fear for more information. Anger, aka rage, frustration, irritability, or stress. Anger is best cleared by primal screaming. See above for details. Swearing like you mean it. Reach down into your belly and swear with gusto. Repeat at least 5 times. Punching or slapping pillows or a punching bag. Beating inanimate objects with a baseball bat or club. Some examples are couches, beds, the earth, or a snowbank. Just be careful not to injure yourself. Dancing and singing along to rage music. Stomping, flailing, growling, and generally throwing a tantrum while you're alone. Slamming doors or throwing objects. I recommend cheap plastic objects whipped at a concrete or brick wall for maximum release with minimal cleanup. Although I did have a patient who bought dollar store glassware and took them to the dump and shattered them there for release without cleanup. And finally, journaling and letter writing to release the rage. See the targeted journaling section of this book for more information. Sadness, aka grief, loss, or depression. Sadness is best cleared by the following: crying without stopping yourself or holding your breath. Moaning and groaning loudly and as long as possible. Try to sound as dramatically sad as you can. Be theatrical if you need to. Journaling and letter writing to acknowledge the pain and hurt. See the targeted journaling section and the section on clearing grief for more information. Trauma and shame. These are best cleared by the following. Journal it out. Want to know the best part? You don't need to write down what happened, unless you feel it would be beneficial for you to acknowledge. You only need to write about how you feel. This is a great way to avoid triggering trauma while still dumping your shit. See the targeted journaling chapter for more information. Counseling. I know some people have a serious stigma around this, but a good counselor is worth their weight in gold. They can help you safely and positively work through your traumatic history so you can let go of old attachments and move forward into your kick-ass future. Please note that this was not an exhaustive list, but only some basic guidelines to help you get started. You may find that these exercises don't help you release your particular brand of shit. That's okay. It just means that you need to find your unique way to release. If you need more help with this, I recommend reaching out to a counselor or therapist near you for more information and resources on healthy emotional release. Journaling. Another great way to get in touch with, and at times even to express your emotions, is to journal. Often once we start writing, we can be surprised by what comes forward, especially if we can get our mind out of the way and just let ourselves flow with whatever needs to come out. Please note that when I say journal, I do not mean keeping a diary. A diary is recording your daily living and events in your life day by day. While this can be interesting and fun, it does not help us to clear our emotional shit. I don't want you to write about the peanut butter sandwich you had for lunch. I want you to write about the deepest, darkest junk you've shoved down into your body that is blocking your psychic abilities. I recommend that you grab a pen and paper and just start writing about how you're feeling in this moment. Try to describe the physical sensations in your body and see if you can connect them to an emotion. Write about what's been going on lately that's bothering you, about troubling relationships, or about your fears for the future. Just let yourself unleash and let out whatever needs to come. Letting yourself just go with the flow during journaling is called free writing. It is definitely a skill, so the more you practice, the easier it gets. The idea is to write without actively engaging your mind, like writing without thinking. You focus your eyes only enough to make sure your pen is on the page, but avoid reading what you're writing as you go, and definitely don't think about the sentences that you're formulating. It's almost as though your hand has a mind of its own and writes without your help. This helps to bypass that common desire to micromanage the journaling process. While we attempt to make a quote-unquote perfect journal entry, we're really just shooting ourselves out of the benefits of this exercise. I don't want your journal to be pretty, grammatically correct, spelled correctly, or to make sense, or even be legible. I just want you to be expressing yourself freely on paper. This is art, not science. Sometimes it can be hard to get started on this, especially if we're really emotionally constipated. If you're getting stuck, check out the journaling practical exercises in the following chapters to help inspire or trigger you into a writing release. For some of you, writing is your worst nightmare, and you hate it more than anything. Maybe you were mocked for your penmanship. Maybe you were told you weren't any good at it or that you couldn't spell. I get it. These sorts of traumas can be hard to get past and rewrite out of our history. Or maybe you have mobility or dexterity issues that prevent you from holding a pen. If you really just can't do it, that's okay. Grab your phone or a recording device and talk journal into it. You can go through the same exercises without a pen, although it can be even more tricky to free speak than to free write, but with a little mental distraction it can be done. Just speak in a stream of chatter without stopping. Stopping means that you're formulating sentences and are thinking about what you're saying, and we definitely don't want that. Just blather on and see what comes up. These can also be very entertaining to play back later. Do I have to record my free speaking is a question I'm often asked. Yes and no. There is absolutely no way that you can listen to what you're saying at the same time as you mindlessly blather out your shit. And we want you to have some reflection time afterwards to review what you said. The only way we can pull the diamonds, aka our lessons, from our shit, aka our emotions, is to dig through it. If you already know and understand the emotions that you're verbally dumping, and you just need to dump, then not recording it is absolutely fine. Need a little more direction to get your emotional poop to start moving out of you? No problem. Check out the following practical exercise on targeted journaling to help you along. Practical exercise, targeted journaling. Sometimes it feels as though free writing just isn't enough, and that we're not quite moving all of the deeper emotional shit. If you're getting stuck with your journaling, the following list gives some examples of targeted exercises that you can do to help kickstart your writing release. Number 1, letter writing. For body dysfunction, write a letter to the part of your body causing you pain or discomfort. Tell it how its malfunction makes you feel and how it's holding you back from living life the way that you want. Say it with emotion. When you're finished, a fun exercise is to let your body part write you back. Simply set the intention to let your body part reply and then free write without thinking or reading what you write. Just let it flow out as quickly as possible. When you're finished, read over what it said. Brace yourself though. Sometimes it will say things that are hard to hear, but it will be exactly what you need to hear in order to heal. For grief and loss, write a letter to a lost loved one, whether they're no longer on this plane or whether they're just lost to your life. Say everything that you need to say. Explain to them what you miss. Blame, yell, name call, cry, beg, or whatever you need to do to get it all out of you. For anger with a person, write a letter to someone that you're angry with. Rage at them on paper. Say hateful things that you would never dream of saying in person. Swear, name call, blame, and get it all out of you. Another form of targeted journaling is Q&A, or question and answer. For this, you make a list of questions that you want to know the answers to. Then simply write, one at a time, at the top of a page. Take a moment to focus on the question, and when you feel ready, free write under the question to see what comes out as your answer. We always have the ability to tap the knowledge inside of us. The hard part is just getting our minds out of the way. Finding the root. Write down an idea or topic that you feel needs further exploration and start delving into it more deeply. Ask yourself questions like, where did I learn this? How does this thought or behavior serve me? And is this something that I want to keep? Even the most ridiculous of our behaviors represent us doing the very best that we can to cope in that moment. Often the first step in healing is understanding the root of what's going on. Finding the lesson. When processing old emotions and pain, finding the underlying lesson can be a great way to help you release and move on. It's a lot easier to process a shit event in your life if you can give it meaning and purpose. Some examples of questions to help you in this process are, for better or worse, what did I learn from this event? Or, how did this shape me and/or my life? What did I gain in the end? How would my life be different today if that had never happened? And how would I be different today if it had never happened? Most of us have learned our biggest lessons from the absolute worst times in our lives. All of us hate the process of hard learning. But if you can find the meaning, you can empower yourself to release the past and stop wishing things went differently. Absolutely everything happens for a reason, even the shit. You went through that hell to make you the fabulous, stronger, kick-ass person that you are today. Pros and cons. One of my favorite ways to help my brain work through making a choice is to write out 2 columns, pros and cons. In the pros column, you write point form notes about all of the positives of that decision, and in the cons column, you write notes about the negatives. Comparing the columns will often give you the answer you seek. What to do when you're done your journal writing exercise. It's essential that you complete your journal exercise in a way that seals the release and healing. In most cases, I recommend taking your written work outside and burning it. But safely, please. I don't want any house fires on my karma. There's something very cathartic about burning as a form of release. Plus, it has the added bonus of ensuring complete destruction of the details of your release for your privacy and safety. Common questions. Why do I have to handwrite my journal? Can't I type it out instead? Yes, of course. My only warning for typing things is that once something exists electronically, it's very hard to be sure you've destroyed it. Due to the often very private nature of these types of journal entries, I recommend creating them in a way that's easily and completely destroyed. Plus, there's something very cathartic about scrawling out our emotion with our hands, maybe ripping it to pieces and burning the shreds as a final release. But if you can't use your hands to write, or can't get release flowing that way, then do what works for you. I have patients who tape record their voice because they hate writing so much or feel too self-conscious and judgmental of their own spelling and grammar. As long as you feel comfortable and safe and you get everything out that you need to, you have done the journal exercise perfectly. Why can't I just think through these things in my head? I wish that I had a clear explanation for this, but I don't. It just doesn't work the same. That's my clinical experience talking. My best guess is that we get stuck in our thought loops. We start thinking about a problem, and we often get stuck cycle thinking on one part of it, so we lose the flow of release. An example, in cases of anxiety, people often think, "Oh my God, what if?" Insert fear here. And then again, "Oh my God, what if?" Over and over and over again. When we put it on paper, we're not able to cycle in the same way because it wouldn't make sense. When we're writing, we actually have to finish and put down the outcome of the what if. See the chapter on conquering fear for more information on walking your fears to the end. Why do I have to burn it afterwards? I like the record of my growth. You absolutely do not have to burn your work. It is just very important to ensure that keeping your journaling pages does not break the one rule of emotional release. If someone that you have written about is able to read your journal, whether you're alive or have later died, and your writing could cause them emotional harm, then keeping it is against the rules. So please feel free to keep journal entries solely about your own growth and thoughts, but please also consider burning or destroying entries about other people, and definitely if those people are still in your life. I'd still consider burning it all anyway. Hanging on to the past is not the path of growth. You can think of this like not flushing the toilet after you shit. Sometimes hanging on to what we wrote is just another way of hanging on to the shit we were working so hard to release. Practical exercise, breathing exercises. Another fantastic way of clearing emotional shit out of the body is through breathing exercises. These are particularly useful if you are in a group of people or a place where you can't be alone or make noise and stomp and flail around. They are not 100% effective at clearing all of the repressed emotions trapped in the body, but can be a great place to start if you don't feel ready for any of the more dramatic release methods. Breathing methods work in the body because they can flip us from stressed and agitated to calm and centered. When we deep breathe and focus our awareness on our breath, we flip our body from the fight or flight stress response run by the sympathetic nervous system to the rest and digest calm response run by the parasympathetic nervous system. This not only brings a sense of calm, but also allows us to sleep more easily, digest our food more completely, and can lower high blood pressure to help protect the heart and arteries. So when it comes to health, I recommend doing at least one of these exercises regularly. Some examples of breathing exercises are 1. 3 slow deep breaths. I recommend using this one in daily life. Whenever things are getting stressful or you're feeling overwhelmed, this simple activity can really help to calm you and bring you back to the present moment. You can use it upon waking and before bed when you feel stressed, or you can even set an alarm on your watch or device to remind you to do this hourly for extra health benefits. The activity itself is exactly as the name implies. Simply take 3 long, slow inhales in through your nose, and then exhale out through your nose. If you're feeling extra stress, try exhaling out of your mouth with force for extra release. I like to close my eyes during deep breathing for extra relaxation. Number 2, color breathing. For those of you who tend to be more creative and drawn to color, you will probably enjoy color breathing best. For this breathing practice, visualize inhaling a cloud of your favorite color, and as you exhale, visualize your breath being a color that you don't like. If you can't decide on colors, then you can always inhale white light and exhale black smoke. As you inhale your happy color, visualize it spreading throughout your entire body, filling you with beautiful swirling color. As you exhale, Visualize gathering any stuck or icky energy from inside your body and exhaling it out of your mouth as the color you don't like. Repeat for at least 5 breaths, or however long you need in order to feel complete. 3. Breath counts. For those of you who consider yourself more logic-minded, you will probably enjoy breath counts and box breathing, explained later. To begin this exercise, simply inhale normally as you count upwards. The timing of your count can be measured by seconds, heartbeats, or whatever rhythm works for you. It's common for a first count to be somewhere in the 2 to 4 seconds or heartbeats range. Whatever count you get to by the end of your natural inhale, simply exhale for the same count. On the next breath, gently see if you can stretch your count a little higher. Exhale to the same count. The goal is to make it to a 10 count breath repeated 5 times, but feel free to go as long and as many breaths as you like. Take your time increasing the count. Don't add stress by trying to overachieve on this exercise. Allow your body to adapt slowly and don't push beyond a gentle stretching sensation. If today you only get to a 5 count repeated 5 times, that's a win. Maybe you'll go higher next time, or maybe not. True success is in sticking with this exercise over time, not in the final count that you reach. Number 4, box breathing. This exercise is a variation on breath counts. In box breathing, you inhale for a count, hold for the same count or half a count, exhale for a full count, hold out for a count or half a count. If you think of each step as the side of a square, that's how you form your box. This breathing exercise is particularly helpful for people who suffer from anxiety or panic attacks. Holding your breath in and holding your breath out for periods of time are spaces when anxiety can begin to surface. Maintaining focus and counting through the emotion can help you cope with your anxiety. It's very empowering to feel anxious while counting and yet to continue with the exercise in the calm understanding that in a few more counts, you will breathe again. Interestingly, in addition to these mini practices in coping with anxiety, the slow rhythmic breathing also massages the vagus nerve, which triggers the parasympathetic nervous system and also helps to calm panic and anxiety. Win-win! Releasing your day. This is my favorite after a stressful day at work and before bed as a breathing exercise. It allows you to release any pent-up shit that you've gathered throughout the day so you can quickly relax and unwind. To begin, take a deep breath in through your nose, then open your mouth, stick out your tongue, and release your exhale in a big gush, with or without sound. But you know I'm going to recommend making a sound. Repeat 3 times. Conquering your fear. Fear is a common limiting factor in psychic gifts. Many people actually live their lives dictated by fear and anxiety. These emotions can become so debilitating they can stop us from living our truth. On top of that, in the energy world, when we don't truly believe in our gut that we are safe, we actually aren't. If this is your experience right now, don't worry or judge yourself. This is exactly why we're doing this work. So how do we begin to work through our fears to help keep us balanced and safe in energetic endeavors? Step 1. First, it's important to put a name to your fears. Take some time to journal a list of fears that commonly trouble you in your daily living. We are particularly interested in fears that appear in your thoughts frequently or fears that affect your behavior and lifestyle. Example, I don't go into the basement because of the spiders, mice, cobwebs, dark, insert your answer here. Step 2. Write about how each of your fears affects your behavior, either in your daily living or on specific occasions. An example of this is locking our doors to avoid robbery or attack. Step 3. To get to the root of your fear, you can walk your fears to the end. We'll go over this in more detail. Step 4. Release your trapped fear physically. Once we've determined our limiting fears and have reduced the power they have over our behaviors, it's important to remove the trapped emotion from the body. Common ways of releasing fear are screaming, shrieking, running, punching, and shaking or flailing. For more information on how to safely release your fears physically, please return to the chapter on clearing emotions from the body. Walking your fears to the end. One of the best ways of getting to the root of our fears is a process I like to call walking our fears to the end. This is a term I use to explain an idea that I use in practice with my patients. It goes a little something like this. We are often significantly more afraid of something than rationally makes sense. This is especially true in cases of phobia, paranoia, and anxiety conditions. For example, it makes perfect sense to be afraid of being attacked while walking down a dark alley. It doesn't make rational sense to have the same level of fear of being attacked while sitting alone in the comfort of your own bedroom. Oftentimes our fear level is much greater than the situation requires. I like to use an example from my own life and my social anxiety to explain this. I also know that this fear will resonate with many of you, the fear of public speaking. Interestingly, when asked in a poll, people reported being more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying. For many people, this means that when thinking about it, they would rather die than give a speech. This is a perfect example of the fear being unequal to the trigger. Back in the day, I had a very strong fear of public speaking, much beyond a rational level. A rational level of fear would be, what if I mess up and people judge me? I'd hate to feel like an idiot and be embarrassed in public. And if that's where the fear path ended, then it would have been a rational level of fear that I experienced. Instead, when put in a position of public speaking, I would have a full physical response, including palpitations, dry mouth, an inability to think clearly, and an impending feeling of doom. These are the symptoms of panic. My fear had gone well above and beyond the actual situation I was facing. When we get to that point, we are actually processing some aspect of our own deepest inner fears. It's not even about the situation or stimulus anymore. It's about our false internal beliefs. So what was I actually so afraid of? Here's the path that my fear took when I dug deep and wrote it down. What if I make a mistake on the presentation or I go blank? People will judge me and realize that I don't know what I'm talking about and will know that I'm a terrible naturopath or student or person, depending on the context of the public speaking. The false inner belief here is I'm not good enough. But it keeps going from there. Once everyone realizes I'm terrible, they won't want to be around me anymore. There's my false inner belief that I'm not lovable. Keep going, I'll be alone. People will talk about me behind my back until everyone knows about me being terrible and no one will come and see me in practice. Then my business will fail. I will lose my house and everything that I own. My husband will take our dogs and leave me. Then I will be a failure who dies alone in the gutter. Just in case it wasn't clear to you, there's a whole lot of huge leaps outside of rational thought in my own fear path. But that's how fear works. If you dig deep and walk through the truth of your own fears, you will probably find a similar slip out of reality or probability. I was taking my fears of not being good enough or lovable and applying it to public speaking. In my subconscious mind, making a mistake in my presentation would eventually lead to failing and dying alone in the gutter. No wonder I was so panicked. So how do we undo this sort of thinking, especially when it's occurring in our subconscious mind, beyond our conscious thinking most of the time? First, we write out our fear path in full. This takes a lot of deep honesty with yourself. I promise you it wasn't easy for me to admit to myself that I deeply believed I was a terrible naturopath or person, nor that I felt that if I wasn't successful, then I wasn't lovable. At the same time, it was very freeing to understand where my anxiety was coming from. Naturopaths are all about treating the root cause. Instead of having a lot of symptoms to try to treat, I now had a root cause I could work on to cure it for good. After writing out the steps of my fear, it was obvious to my rational mind how far from logic I had slipped. I went through step by step and tried to guess on the probability that that step could actually happen, and I tried to err on the side of yes. So as it started with me thinking, sure, maybe I screw up the presentation, and heck, maybe everyone stops coming to see me and I lose my business. Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Sure. But then I got to the bottom of the list, and I knew it was just that bit too far. My husband and I have already been through a lot of shit in our marriage, and I know he wouldn't leave me because of money or status. It's not who he is. On top of that, me dying alone in the gutter would require me lying down and giving up. If there's one thing I know about myself, It's that giving up is not something I'm capable of. Just ask my poor mother, who nicknamed me Katy Relentless growing up. I'll shovel shit, I'll flip burgers, I don't care, I've done it before. I'll do whatever I need to do to work my way back to living my path. I often joke that I'm a cockroach. No matter what happens, I'm always going to come back using everything I've got. It's my very nature. Once I realized that and did some great car screaming sessions, my anxiety bubble burst and I became comfortable with public speaking. Now, teaching groups is a big part of my life. I never would have been able to fulfill this part of my soul path if I had not worked through my fear. I want to share that freedom with you. The goal of working through this process is to allow you to find the places where your thoughts lose their logic in your fear thought pathways. Write out each step and ask yourself how true it is or how likely it is to happen. Once you see where your thoughts lost their logic, you can reassure yourself of the truth, from my example, that I would never give up and lay down and die. This will burst your panic bubble and help your fear to drop down to a level that's appropriate to the occasion, so you can get busy running at your soul path once more. But maybe fear isn't your biggest block. Maybe you're stuck in grief and loss instead. If so, please read on, and we'll get to working through your sadness. Clearing grief and sadness. Sadness, grief, and loss are very heavy, draining emotions, often feeling like pressure or downward pulling sensations in the body, and are commonly felt in the chest and upper belly. When we haven't cleared our past sadness, it builds up in the body and can eventually lead to depression and kind of a general malaise. Grief, loss, and sadness don't just have to involve people or relationships either. We can be sad about the loss of a home, a job, moving to a new city, or even loss of status or lifestyle. Any change can create these feelings inside of us, and often it is during these life transitions that we don't have enough time to really grieve the loss and let the sadness out. We have to hurry on and get everything settled. By the time we have fully transitioned through the change, we've completely forgotten about the grieving process, but those emotions still need to be dealt with. Take a moment to reflect upon any times of loss, sadness, or grief in your own life. I'd strongly recommend grabbing your journal and making a list of events in your life that trigger sadness in you. Don't judge what your brain comes up with. I don't care if it's a huge thing or the one time your friend didn't invite you to her party when you were 7. If the emotion is there, then I want it on your list. Sometimes simply making this list and reflecting on different points as you go can be enough to bring up the sadness in your body. If you get the urge to cry during this activity, please cry. Crying is the absolute best release for sadness. All I ask is that you don't hold your breath or try to cry silently. That shit isn't good for you. Breathe throughout your crying. This usually means that you're going to make noise and snot and sob out loud. Yes, please. Making noise is a fantastic release. If you don't naturally make noise when you cry, then try forcing it. Make as loud and dramatic of sobs as you can. Wail out loud, and any other motions or noises that come to you. One of the hardest things about releasing sadness is just getting over ourselves and no longer caring how we look to others. It's time for a really good, ugly cry. For more journaling release exercises that help you to get started on your release of sadness, you can refer back to the chapter on targeted journaling. Common excuses I hear for why people just can't release. Number 1, I was taught never to cry. That's a common one, especially if you're male in North American society and/or are any gender over the age of 35. That old belief is bullshit. If you're human and have emotions, then you need to cry. End of story. Emotional release is like shitting. You don't have to shit in public, but that doesn't mean you never shit. This can be something that you do privately on your own, but you need to do it. Your parents and society taught you the best they could with the tools that they had in that moment, but you're learning better tools now. You're never too old to change. Excuse 2, crying is weak. Bullshit. Let's compare 2 scenarios and you tell me which option is harder and takes more gonads. Number 1, sitting in a room full of people who care about me, but holding in my sadness because I don't want to upset them or make them feel uncomfortable by witnessing me release my emotions. Option 2, sitting in a room full of people who care about me and crying openly and honestly because I'm sad and not giving a shit what they think about it. Let's be honest, you're way more afraid of option 2 than you are of option 1. It takes serious balls, or lady balls, to stand up and be true to you. If you're worried about being weak, consider that it's more weak to be willing to cause yourself lasting harm by holding in your emotions just to protect old social norms. On top of that, we're not asking you to cry in public, so you're the only judge present, and you have the power to reframe crying to be the badass, strong activity it really is. Excuse 3. I don't want to dump my emotions on other people. So don't. Generally speaking, it's better if you don't express your emotional shit in front of other people, unless those people are part of your support network. My recommendation is to hold in your shit until a more suitable time when you can be alone. Just make sure that you make time later to actually get your release. Next excuse. I get sad and I feel pressure in my eyes or tears come, but then I can't cry. I hear this excuse a lot in practice. My answer is always to fake it till you make it, or act it until you become it. This is a sign that you are subconsciously suppressing your emotions. The only way to overcome this issue is to keep practicing and pushing yourself to try to emote. One great way to help stimulate tears is to go back to the triggering thought or thoughts that started the sensation and repeat them over and over again to yourself. Another is to fake cry as a starter if need be. Dramatically moan, groan, sigh, and sob to see if you can kickstart a more natural release. Even if you don't slip into a natural release, that's okay. Believe it or not, going through the motions of release can also be a form of release in itself. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in thinking about why we can't release that we lose the ability to release at all. When I was little, I remember getting all worked up because I couldn't fall asleep. I cried to my dad, and he said, "You don't need to sleep, you can just rest instead. Just lay there, picture a pretty sunset over the lake with a sailboat floating by, and just rest your body." I listened to him and was asleep minutes later. Getting wound up about not being able to sleep was stopping me from sleeping. The same is true for any emotion. If we start worrying about or analyzing why we're not crying, then we're not thinking about things that are going to make us cry. Next excuse. Crying about it won't solve anything. What's done is done. This is probably one of my personal favorite bullshit excuses, mostly because it comes from such a purely rational and practical point of view, and it resonates with my science mind. While I agree that crying about your past shit won't change the past, it will change the way you feel about what happened. Nobody can change the terrible, traumatic, or sad things that have happened in your life. Nor would I want to, because they made you the awesome person you are today. But if we can change how you feel about what happened, then we can remove its power over you. Then you can remember the facts of the past without the pain. Next excuse. I'm afraid that if I start crying, I'll never stop. Here's the fun part about being human with a physical body. It's actually physically impossible to cry forever. Eventually, you will dehydrate and pass out. I know that this sounds ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure most of us have cried ourselves to sleep at least once in our lives. On the flip side, I realize I'm making light of a very real fear for you and putting rational thought to an irrational fear, which probably doesn't actually help. It can feel very real when emotions we have buried for so long will come up and take over our lives, especially if we release control over them. The truth is, if we allow our emotions to process and flow out, they actually finally stop taking over our lives. This leads me to the next common phrase I hear in practice concerning the release of sadness. I'm afraid that if I start digging into this stuff again, I'll get depressed. This is another common fear, especially in those who have experienced bouts of depression in the past. It's never an emotional state we want to have come back. That's a very rational fear. But the truth is, depression is caused by repressed sadness, not releasing sadness. When we keep our sadness stuffed down inside of us, we never get extremely sad. We are also a low-grade sad all the time. It robs us of our happiness, and we become increasingly more depressed over time. Releasing your sadness may seem harder in the moment, but it actually frees you for the future so you no longer carry that persistent weight and worry. As a side note to those of you science minds, yes, depression is often a chemical imbalance in the brain. But what science can't explain is how or why that imbalance occurs. There is debate about what comes first, the chemical imbalance or the mood changes. I believe it's an emotional or spiritual imbalance which triggers a chemical shift in the brain resulting in depression. Your genetic predisposition determines how much emotional shit you can repress before the chemical imbalance begins to occur. So some of you have to work harder at emotional release than others to maintain your balance. And some of you will require medication during hard times or when first clearing your shit to help you get enough breathing room to do the work. If you need meds, take them. Trust your gut. We are all given the gift of intuition or gut feelings with our lives here on earth. It's our connection to our own soul and to the greater oneness energy, also known as the divine, universe, God, Allah, Yahweh, Creator, Waheguru, whatever works for you. On the base level, this is the easiest way for you to connect with your own inner soul truth. I don't want you to miss this point, so I'm going to repeat it. Your own gut feeling is the key to connecting with your individual soul and the all-knowing divine. How awesome is that? So how do you hear what your soul or the oneness is trying to tell you? For some of us, we have come to ignore our soul speak so expertly that we aren't even aware that it's speaking at all anymore. When this happens, a general sense of unease permeates your life. Everything starts to feel wrong, and you don't know why. You feel sad, disappointed, lost, and directionless. There's an underlying sense that there's more to life and that something's missing. Feelings of frustration, depression, and hopelessness can quickly overtake your everyday life. If this goes on long enough, you even lose your connection to the divine, your sense of self, and your purpose. This does not have to be a permanent problem, though. If you've been feeling any of these things, fear not. You can once again connect with your own inner divine. Tuning into your gut, as I like to call it, usually comes naturally for almost everyone, at least in intense situations. It's that don't walk down that dark alley sensation you get in your belly when it flip-flops in the face of possible danger. Most of us have at least one memory, usually many more, of a time when our intuition or gut feeling told us to do or not do something that ended up being beneficial information at the time. Journal exercise. Memories of gut feelings. Do you have examples of this in your own life? Consider taking a moment to journal any prominent memories you have of your own gut feelings. This sort of connection can be intensified and your inner voice amplified in order to use this soul guidance anytime and for any decision facing you in your life. The best part, it always knows the right answer for you. The key words in that sentence were always and for you. While your gut is all-knowing about anything to do with your own decisions, life direction, and beliefs, it does not have the answers for other people in your life. It is a gift only for your personal reflection and use. For example, my gut may tell me that eating a certain food is wrong, or that a certain religion or spiritual belief is right. That doesn't mean that these things are right or wrong in a whole world sense, but just right or wrong for me. Be careful judging others by your own gut standards, because their gut may guide them on a completely different path, and while it's not anything like your correct path, you are actually both right. Your gut is giving the truth for you, and their gut is giving the truth for them. So, let's do some practice to get you back in touch or more in touch with your own inner truth. Practical exercise and guided meditation, connecting to your gut. Welcome to the guided meditation of connecting to your gut with Katy Howard. To begin, get into a comfortable seated or reclined position, somewhere you can completely relax and observe the feeling of the baseline state of sensation in your body. The idea is not to sit rigidly straight or hold any particular posture in a proper manner, but instead to find a position that is effortlessly comfortable. If you need to slouch, lean, or lay down, please do so. When you feel ready, close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath that stretches and expands your belly outwards, and then your chest out and up. As you exhale, let your belly gently fall back inwards, and then allow your chest to fall once more. Repeat this deep, rolling breath 3 or more times. With your next 3 deep belly breaths, I want you to inhale deeply, stretching into your belly muscles, But this time as you exhale, I want you to sound off. Just let your mouth hang wide open and release any noise that feels good to get out. You can scream, grunt, growl, groan, shriek, or sigh loudly. A lot of people get stuck on this point and have trouble just letting go, so please take all the time that you need to really let loose on this step before you move on. Think of this as clearing emotional junk to make space in your belly for you to feel what's going on in there. If it's too difficult to release with sound, or you can't get any space alone in this moment to do this exercise right now, then please repeat some of the breathing exercises earlier in this section as a different way of making space. Don't skip this preparation, or you won't get a clear read from your gut, and that's the whole point of this exercise. The goal is to make a feeling of open space inside your belly or your entire body. When you have done so, please continue. Take stock of your gut. How does it feel down there in your abdomen? Is there any tension remaining? Any tight spots? If so, take a few more deep breaths into the belly, trying to send the breath to those tight spots, and then sounding off as you exhale to blow out the last of your tension. Repeat this step until your belly and body feel loose and completely relaxed. Get your journal ready to jot notes about the sensations that you experience. Now let's practice feeling your gut sensations with some control questions, so you can sense how your gut speaks to you. Pick a statement that is undeniably and factually false. Example, my hair is purple, unless your hair actually is purple. Or, I am wearing a bikini right now. It is important that you use clear yes or no statements based on fact and not something too complicated like, I love my mom or dad or kids or spouse, where there may be many layers of emotion that can complicate the sensation, because sometimes we hate those people too. Repeat that simple factual statement in your mind while you monitor how it feels inside your gut and body. Is there any change inside of you? How would you describe the sensation? Write that in your journal for later. Now pick a factually true statement and repeat it in your mind while you monitor how that feels inside your abdomen and the rest of your body. How would you describe this sensation? Write that in your journal as well. Continue switching between true and false statements until you can feel a shift and tell what true and what false feel like inside of your body. You now have a baseline sensation of no for the factually false statement and yes for the true statement. Once you have a strong understanding of your gut language, then go ahead and ask it anything that you want to know about yourself or your path. Ask it if your current partner is right for you in this moment. Ask if you're in the correct job right now. Ask it about a decision you're not sure about in this moment or when you don't know which direction is right for you. The possibilities are endless. The only restriction is that your questions must be phrased to allow for yes or no or true or false answers, and you have to be very careful with your wording. Be specific and include a timeline to ensure that you get the correct answer for you in this moment. Troubleshooting. I didn't get a clear sensation change between no and yes. Try repeating from the beginning with more focus on releasing any tension in your body before you begin. Try to let go of any performance anxiety. Just accept that the answers don't matter so much as understanding the internal sensation for now. Practice just being open to the sensation experience of yes and no. Clear your mind of worry and thoughts and begin the breathing and release once more. It is also possible that you may want to try different control questions, such as the type of floor or ground beneath you or the color of wall next to you. I'm not confident in what I'm feeling. This is normal at first because it's all new and the sensations can be subtle when we start out. Common descriptions of those gut sensations are: yes is loose, calm, relaxed, warm, happy, ease, expanding, open, peaceful. No feels tight, clenching, bubbly, fluttery, contracting, butterflies, sick, icky, prickly, or upset. Do your belly sensations relate to any of these, or was it a different combination? Or maybe you didn't feel any shift in your belly, but your right ear tingles or your left big toe cramped. Perfect! There are no right or wrong sensations for this exercise. It's only important that you can feel the difference between yes and no within your own body so that you can use it for your own clarification of self and path. Why does wording matter? Because the answer will change depending on how you ask certain questions. As an example, I had a patient who was trying to discover her correct life path in this moment. She would ask herself, is going to university the right path for me? And it would clearly answer yes. Then she would say, but whenever I think I'm going to university right now, my gut starts feeling gross again. So I asked her to ask her gut, is going to university this fall the right path for me? And she immediately laughed and said, it says no! Then she asked about taking an extended trip to Europe that she had always dreamed of doing in the fall and got a resounding yes. And so her life path became crystal clear for her. Take her Euro trip now and sign up for university afterwards. The sense of relief she felt was palpable in the room and clear on her face. Suddenly all of her fears and confusion were gone, and she had a sense of direction and a plan to follow. This is the perfect example of why we need to be very specific about how we ask our questions and remember to always include a timeline. When I hear the answer, I feel very moved or feel like crying. This is common. The knowledge and information that you are receiving when you do this exercise isn't suddenly appearing, it's always inside of you. The gut exercise just helps you to focus and hear it more clearly. Usually, the answers that you get will feel familiar and freeing for you. It's often not that we don't know what we want to do, but that we're afraid of making the wrong choice if we follow that inner calling. We get trapped in overthinking and the shoulds of life. Making our inner knowing more tangible for our minds can often give us permission to actually move forward with following our soul path. It's no wonder this can bring up so much emotion. Practice, practice, practice. Getting good at gut sense. As with everything in life, practice makes perfect. You need to get really good at sensing your own gut quickly and clearly, as this is the first step for tuning in more easily and clearly to your psychic gifts. Ask it about everything, all day, every day. This is a little bit of an exaggeration, but only a bit of one. Are you getting dressed in the morning? Pass your fingers or eyes over different shirts or pants and see which one your gut approves of. Use it to pick your jewelry, accessories, breakfast choice, music, activities, everything. The more you tune into your gut, from the small, unimportant details to the big, life-changing decisions, the faster you will be evolving into your true psychic self. Think this is stupid? I sure did when I started doing it. I was working as a receptionist in a headhunter firm and had a closet largely consisting of black, white, gray, and drab blue, with maybe a little drab green for variety. I wore what was expected of me, and with as little personality as possible. That is what society trained me to do, and I happily followed that should path. I was too afraid to stand out and be the protruding nail that got hammered. So of course, the day came where my gut called me to wear a bright pink collared shirt my mother had given me that I had crammed towards the back of my closet rail. I immediately began to panic inside. Could I wear this to work? What would people think? I hated pink at that time. Was it hypocritical for me to wear it? What would it say about me? Finally, as I was about to shove it back on the rack and grab something safe, my science mind chimed in and said, "Holy crap, Katy, it's just a friggin' shirt. Why don't we make an experiment out of this and just see what happens? What's the worst that could happen?" Seeing the logic in my science mind's reasoning, I put the shirt on and went to work. And that's when the weirdness began. I started my workday as usual and was sitting at my desk welcoming candidates to their interviews, taking resumes and answering phones, and that's when she walked in. A girl near my own age, wearing the same damn shirt I had on. My mind reeled, and I stared at her for a second, and then my humor kicked in, and I pointed from her shirt to mine, and said she had fantastic taste. She laughed and cracked a joke, and we became friends for a few years afterwards. If I hadn't been wearing that pink shirt, I probably would have handed her the required paperwork and never stopped to speak with her, and we would never become friends. Can I explain how all that worked? No. Did it give me a creepy insight into the synchronicity of the universe? Yes. Or at least that's how I choose to view it. My science mind is equally happy to say that it was just an interesting coincidence. My gut doesn't agree though, and in my world, the gut always wins. That girl taught me a lot about many different things: food, weight, eating disorders, and body image that changed how I view myself and my patients now. Her friendship was a gift that helped my own growth and provided skill sets that allowed me to better help my patients. This is just one of many similar gut development stories in my life. The more experiences like this I have had, the easier it got to have faith that what was happening was more than coincidence. Some thoughts for reflection. Do you have any coincidental stories in your own life? What came from them? What did you learn? How did you grow? See if you can journal one or two of these stories to help you remember the details of the synchronicity. I believe that these events and people come into our lives when and how we need them, so we can learn the lessons that we need to learn to follow our soul path. The more clearly you connect with your inner knowing, the more quickly you will progress on your psychic journey. Now that we've cleared and prepared our bodies for psychic work, it's time to move forward and clear the mental sphere. Book 2, Part 3, Mental Preparation. Getting your mind ready and in a good place can be one of the most difficult parts of preparing for psychic work. Is it always necessary to be perfectly meditative and calm to tap into your abilities? No, of course not. But it is helpful to be focused, reflective, and centered. This helps to ensure you can separate your own thoughts and mental jumble from any incoming insights or messages. The following chapters will present in-depth preparation to help guide you forward. First, here are some simple steps that you can take immediately to help you get your mind in the right space for the upcoming work. 1. Begin a media detox. This means unplugging from television, news broadcasts, radio, newscasts, newspapers, magazines, social media, and other anxiety-driven media sources that spread negativity and fear. These emotions prevent proper opening and are damaging to the soul over long periods of time. While I recommend leaving these behind forever, at the very least, please consider not partaking while you are working your way through this book. 2. Pay attention to your thoughts. Are you a positive or negative thinker? Do you worry a lot? What do you tend to think about? 3. Pay attention to your self-talk. What sorts of things do you say to yourself in your mind? What tone of mental voice do you use with yourself? 4. Begin journaling. Write down your thoughts and feelings to help yourself sort through, understand, and become familiar with your own inner feelings and thought processes. This baseline knowledge is essential to your future psychic work. It will allow you to disentangle what is your normal internal experience and what is being sensed from other sources. 5. Take a little time for yourself every single day. This will allow you to center and check in with your mind and body. This doesn't have to be a fancy meditation process, although it can be if you enjoy that. It just has to be consistent and intentional. This can be an excellent time to journal. It can take you as little as a minute or two, or as long as you like. Trust your gut to know what's best for you. It is extremely helpful to begin this preparation process at least 3 days prior to the psychic exercises later in the book. If you start now and work through the book in order, you should be in a better state of body and mind in time to begin the energetic work later on. If you're impatient like me and wish to get on with the good stuff, you're always welcome to jump forward and try pushing on through the exercises to see how much you can sense right away. But I encourage you not to be discouraged if the results are not extreme. Simply return to these earlier chapters and work your way through the full preparation before trying again to see if you can improve the results. Journal exercise. Who are you? This seems like such a simple question superficially. Why, I am me, of course. Or maybe the question confuses or terrifies you because you're really not sure. No matter how you feel about the question, I want you to take a minute and write out a list of aspects of who you are as you know yourself right now. Please don't skip ahead before writing this list, even if it's only one word long. Just do your best to describe yourself as you are in this moment, and if possible, who you are as a person. If you're feeling stuck, think of words the people closest to you would use to describe you. When you're finished, take a moment to reflect upon what you've written. Is your list heavy in words that describe what you do? Job, degree, achievements, activities, or in roles that you play, such as friend, child, parent, worker, teacher, etc.? Or do you have a list of adjectives about your personality? No matter what's on your list, do not judge yourself for what you've written. It's easy to rush to judge ourselves for quote-unquote getting it wrong, or to congratulate ourselves on quote-unquote getting it right. The idea behind this exercise is not to get it perfect the first time, but to help you to reflect on your beliefs about yourself. It's not the list that counts, but the thinking that you do afterwards that we're seeking. It's common for all of us to get so wrapped up in our actions and interactions with others that we lose the true essence of who we are inside. If your list was heavy in words that describe what you do or roles that you play, then I want you to reflect on why you define yourself by what you do or how you relate to others. If you don't know what descriptive words involve others, here's a list of some commonly used other-oriented words I hear in my practice. Good, mother, father, employee, boss, friend, or other role. An achievement-oriented one, such as top athlete, sales agent, CEO, honors graduate, and so on. Can be a job or career, example, doctor, lawyer, salesperson, waitress, accountant, student. And then other descriptive words that involve others, such as kind, generous, giving, selfish, guarded, open, closed, sensitive, empath, mean, insensitive, people pleaser, lonely, selfless, connected, friendly, shy, social, entertaining, boring, attentive, involved, antisocial. After reading through this, then I want you to start your list again, this time with words that you feel describe your personality and character traits. We want to end up with a list of words that describe who you are. So imagine for a second what you're like when there's no one else around and nothing that needs to be done. When there aren't roles to fill or things to achieve or do with your time, who are you? Make a new list with these new descriptive words, even if it's quite short. Just write down what you know to be true in this moment. If you need some examples of descriptive words that don't necessarily involve others, here's a list. Funny, silly, positive, negative, grumpy, smart, dumb, witty, thoughtful, intellectual, reflective, peaceful, rowdy, quick thinking, witty, happy, unhappy, angry, sad, guilty, quick-tempered, empty, fulfilled, content, sensitive, emotional, calm, volatile, passionate, anxious, prudent, sensual, sexual, loud, quiet, patient, impatient, self-conscious, proud, ashamed, powerful, powerless, capable, incapable, weak, strong, vulnerable, guarded, inhibited, uninhibited, intolerant, accepting, interested, disinterested, talented, strong, weak, tired, energetic, connected, disconnected, spiritual, intuitive, curious, knowing, focused, distracted, brave, fearful, open-minded, honest, dishonest, secure, insecure, grounded, spontaneous, planner, impulsive, structured. Are you still stuck? Then make a list of the personality and character traits that you see in others that you wish were embodied in you. This is a beautiful place to start, as it gives you things to manifest in yourself as time goes by. At the same time, don't be ashamed to embrace your negative qualities. In my beliefs, there are no negative qualities. It's how we use or express them that counts. Remember, this is just a starting place. Don't be disheartened. You can always revisit this later as you learn more about yourself, as we work together, and as you continue this practice throughout your life. This simply offers a useful baseline for future comparisons later on. Tuck it away in the back of the book or somewhere safe, because now we're going to show you how to get back in touch with yourself and expand your list. If all of this went perfectly smoothly and you're happy with your list, then you may not need the next section, but it never hurts to check in. Don't should your pants. Shoulds don't come from within us. They are given to us by other people and society as a whole. Shoulds are other people's shit being shoveled onto you. They weigh you down and cloud your ability to clearly see your own path. Unfortunately, by the time we enter adulthood, a long list of shoulds are firmly ingrained in our psyche and can be very challenging to acknowledge and overcome. There are many expectations placed upon us in today's society. Not only does this include the larger expectations of society as a whole, such as gender roles, what defines success, body image, and so on, but also the expectations from those closest to us, and then our own expectations of ourselves. All of these expectations come together and become deeply embedded in our subconscious minds. Then our minds are continually juggling endless lists of expectations that are quickly translated into shoulds, even when we work consciously to avoid them. Who we should be, how we should look, how we should act, who we should hang out with, what we should achieve, and when we should get all these societal goals completed. It's an endless sense of pressure. Because of this, we become so focused on what is expected of us that we lose connection with our own inner truth. My goal is to help you begin living more in line with your wants. Not on a superficial level, although those can be fun too, but on a deeper soul level. We do this by listening to our gut sense so we can properly follow our soul path. The hardest part is shutting down your mental self-talk long enough to get there. Your gut will help you gain a sense of greater fulfillment when you're performing tasks that you want to do. In fact, as you step into fulfilling your gut wants, you will feel yourself align with your soul path, and the activities that you do will begin to feel like your calling rather than work. Shoulds are particularly difficult to overcome for those of us who are people pleasers. We all want to make others happy, but for some of us it becomes a central need and we build our lives around the needs of others. We gain a sense of worthiness and love when pleasing others or fulfilling their needs while ignoring our own. For others, their shoulds ensure that they fit into society as a whole or in smaller social groups. What would people think if I just left my job and started working as an artist instead? The fear of being judged and displeasing others becomes the driving point behind many life decisions. It seems as though being accepted by others gives us the excuse to accept ourselves. Can you see any shoulds that may already be limiting your own happiness? Journal exercise. Should check. Begin by writing a list of everything that you do on a daily basis. It can be as general or as detailed as you wish. Write each activity in a column down the side of the page. This may end up being a very long list. Here's an example of a morning list from my own life. Wake by 7:45 a.m. Drink water. Let dogs out. Washroom. Brush teeth. Shower. Dress in work clothes. Feed dogs. Eat breakfast. Take supplements. Do makeup. Do hair. Protection meditation with stones. Go to work. It goes on from there. When you're finished your list, evaluate each item and assign it as either a should or a want by asking your gut about it. You can also split wants into superficial and soul wants if you like. Items can also be both a should and a want. Don't restrict yourself. Just make sure that you're asking your gut and not your mind. Feel your answers. Don't think them out. So from my example, wake by 7:45 a.m. Should. Drink water. Want. Let dogs out. Should. Washroom. Want. Brush teeth. Want. Shower. Should. Dress in work clothes. Should. Feed dogs. Want. Clean up kitchen and dishes. Want. Eat breakfast. Want. Take supplements. Want. Do makeup. Both. Depends on the day. Do hair. Both. Depends on the day. Protection meditation. Both. Depends on the day. Go to work. Both. Depends on the day. Take a little time to pause this book, make your list, and evaluate each item now. When you're finished, please resume playing. Now that you're finished, how does your list look? What percentage of your list is based on should versus the percentage that's based on want? How do you feel about that balance? Is there anything that you want to change? How did you feel writing out and gut checking your list? Write a journal entry considering these feelings and any other insights and emotions that came up with this exercise. Often, it can come as quite a surprise how much we do out of a sense of obligation and duty. Sometimes it's not so much the chore or task itself that's a should, but the timing of when we feel forced to do that chore that makes the gut unhappy. A great example from my own life is doing the dishes. I used to hate doing the dishes. I believed it was the worst chore possible and would negotiate with my university roommates for me to clean the bathroom in exchange for getting out of the dishes. Growing up, I was raised that doing the dishes must happen immediately after the meal, and then the kitchen must then be tidy and clean before bedtime. I had lived this should for much of my adult life until I began to do some of the self-reflection exercises listed above. One night, I stood in front of a sink full of soapy water with bitter resentment inside of me. Fuck, I hate dishes. I'm full and I just want to go and relax. I would have done anything not to be doing them in that moment. Suddenly, it dawned on me that my gut was saying no and I wasn't listening. I put the cloth down, drained the sink, and walked away, eventually going to bed. Unfortunately, those dishes were still there in the morning, and I looked at them and asked myself, my gut, if I wanted to do them, and the answer was still nope. So I made my breakfast around them, got ready for work, and went about my day. Same thing that night. Later, as I lay in my bed, I started wondering if I should just invest in recyclable cutlery and plates, since I doubted I would ever actually feel like doing the dishes. On the third morning after, I woke feeling rested and happy. I walked into the kitchen, to the several-day pile of dishes at this point, and realized that I actually wanted to do them. I couldn't believe it. I had never had that feeling about dishes before in my entire life. I turned on some music and filled the sink. As my toast was toasting, I scraped and rinsed everything, loaded the dishwasher, and began scrubbing the hand washables. Everything passed in a haze, and soon the kitchen was spotless, and I was still happily singing along to my music. I realized that day that I actually enjoy doing the dishes in the morning. I like the feeling of getting everything organized and starting my day right. From that moment forward, I started soaking stubborn things at night, and then doing my dishes the morning after, and it's a rare day that I resent washing them. This real-life example represents how the same task can be considered a want or a should, depending on how or when you do it. Not everything is black and white when you're sorting your list. The only important point to note is how you feel when you're doing it. Are you happy and content, or bitter and resentful? Do you need to reevaluate anything on your daily task list? Is there anything that you'd like to approach differently or change? If no one else was involved, how would you live your life? Journal exercise. Your ideal life. Take a few minutes to fantasize about your ideal life in an ideal world. When you have a firm picture in your mind, jot down notes or even full sentences and paragraphs about your ideal life. If this stumps you at first, then write about what you would do and how you would live if you had all the money and time in the world and no one else depending upon you. What would your life look like? Where would you live? What would you do with your time? Would you work? If so, what would you do? Make a list of points that describe your ideal life. When you're finished with writing out your ideal life, then I want you to practice working with your gut and see how each point feels. Which points does your gut agree with? Which points does it disagree with? What new image of your ideal life are you left with after this reevaluation? Did anything change? Did everything change? With the busy whirlwind pace of today's society, and in light of how overloaded most of us are a lot of the time, it's easy to lose track of your true soul wants. This is a great activity to repeat now and again to see how far apart your mind and soul are with respect to your dreams and goals. After a quick check-in, you can once again align yourself with your soul truth and get back on track following your soul path like you deserve. Why is she doing all this self-help crap? I bought a psychic gifts book! I hear you. This is a little crazy, but there is a method to my madness, I promise. While at first these things may seem completely unrelated, they are, in fact, completely intertwined. You must know yourself deeply before you can connect fully to your psychic gifts, and you need to clear your old emotional junk to create the internal space required to allow psychic information to enter. The psychic world can be a very confusing place, and a firm and grounded foundation is essential. It is also essential to be able to distinguish what is your own stuff from what you are picking up off another person or from a message intended to be shared. Listening to your own soul is the fastest way to begin on your path to hearing the other quiet voices within. Meaning and purpose of your life. When I first meet new patients in session, I always ask them what the meaning of life is for them, not necessarily for the whole world. This can be a pretty intense question for most people when first meeting someone new. But for me, it provides a fantastic base of information about where they are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in this moment. Many people just stare at me blankly or crack a joke about my intensity. Some people look a bit shell-shocked and say they've never really thought about it before. And some explain their deep, heartfelt beliefs on life and their life purpose. No matter which one of these cases best represents you, I promise the answers are inside of you. Some religions provide pre-made answers to the question of the meaning of life, and some don't. All I want you to do in this moment is to think about what the meaning of life is for you. Maybe you have strong answers, and maybe you don't. But what comes to mind first? Here are some common answers. Happiness, and the pursuit of it. Helping others. Serving God. Making the world a better place. Learning and growing. More important than what anyone else thinks, what does your gut say? In my belief system, the earth plane is like a never-ending classroom, and we are all here to learn. We are not here to be happy, and we are not here to achieve. We are attending the kindergarten of souls and are learning simple spiritual lessons like sharing, compassion, self-love, giving love freely, receiving love, self-respect, respect for others, self-worth, and so on. We are provided with one lesson at a time, and we repeat that lesson however many times it takes in order to really learn and integrate that knowledge into our lives. I am sure if you pause for a moment, you can think of someone in your life, or maybe even you yourself, who repeats a certain lesson over and over again. Maybe they're always dating the same kind of person, or they're constantly taking unfulfilling jobs, or always betrayed in some way or another. This is just the universe providing the opportunity to learn their current lesson. At some point, we are given an exam, or a moment of truth, where we can demonstrate that we have learned the current lesson, or we haven't. If we fail, some period of time later, we will move into repeating that lesson once more, either with the same set of circumstances and people, or a whole new set. The beautiful part of this repeating cycle is that we choose these lessons and our teachers before we come to this plane. We select whatever scenarios our soul needs to grow and become better. We also provide ourselves with potential exit points, which are times in our life when we have the opportunity to die and leave, so we can hit the reset button, so to speak, and our final exit point when we have finished all the lessons that we came here to learn. If your soul chooses not to use the exit point as its time arrives, you'll experience a quote-unquote close call, where you are close to death or find yourself in a serious life-threatening situation that you surprisingly ended up coming out of unscathed. Upon learning this stuff, I have found comfort in the belief that everything bad happens for a reason, and if I can find the lesson in the pain, then I can move past that pain and never have to deal with it again. Pulling the diamond of a lesson from the shit piles of bad times in your life can be difficult, but I promise you, it's worth it. So once you've sorted through thinking of life as a learning experience, it becomes easier to gain a better view of where all these lessons may have been guiding you. Ultimately, we are always being guided towards our life purpose. When we're first finding our way, it's very common to feel lost and to not know what career or opportunity is meant for us. Most of us start out with only vague ideas of what will fulfill us, and that's okay. Or maybe you have known your whole life what you were meant to do. The question then is, are you doing it? If so, congratulations! You are part of the select few. It is far more common to have settled into a job and/or a life that doesn't feel quite right. Maybe your life only requires a few small tweaks, or maybe you are many large steps from your true path. Only your gut knows the answer to that question. If you check in right now and ask yourself if you are on your true path, what sensation do you get? If it wasn't exactly an open and free feeling, then maybe you need to make some changes. Once again, your gut can guide you if there are any required changes, and if so, what they may be, as long as you provide the helpful yes or no questions. I make all of this sound so simple, right? And yet it's terrifying. I know, and it really is simple. Not easy, but simple. Does the thought of changing your life feel overwhelming? Maybe you're afraid that your marriage won't survive that, or that you'll lose everything you've worked so hard to build. Those are valid worries. And I'm not here to tell you to dump everything you've ever known and start off in an entirely new direction. All I want you to do is be aware of your path. The joy of free will is that you can absolutely choose not to follow it. But you can't make a true choice if you don't even know what you're choosing. Journal exercise. Life purpose. Have you ever reflected upon your life's purpose before this? What are you supposed to be doing in order to follow your soul path? Make a list of things you enjoy, even if it's just little, tiny details that don't seem related. Right now, they're just puzzle pieces floating around. It's okay if you can't put them together without the big picture just yet. One day, you may look back on the list of pieces and clearly see how they all fit together. To give you an example from my own life, my list at the age of 23 would have been the following: medical education, counseling, helping and serving others, coaching, writing, teaching, native and cultural studies, science, tangible positive outcomes, because I'm strongly internally rewarded by this, entrepreneur, being my own boss, animals, math, and business. These things did not appear to fit together at all back then. Upon finding naturopathic medicine, energy healing, and this course series, nearly the entire list makes sense. I'm excited to see how the final pieces fit in as time goes by. If you were to do the same exercise for yourself in this moment, what would your list look like? Please take some time to make a list in your notebook, even if it's only 2 things that you can comfortably commit to in this moment. When you're finished, please continue on. Is there a visible theme to your list? Is there a way to incorporate even one of these things into your life at this time that isn't there already? How would your life change if you focused on the things from your list? Do you think you'd be more happy or less happy? It's possible that you just wrote a list that easily adds up to exactly what you're doing right now, or possibly to a related career path that you can shift into with some small changes. Or maybe absolutely nothing that you've written would fit into your current life. Either case is absolutely fine. Right now, we're just collecting pieces of the puzzle that will come together later to reveal your life purpose. If these ideas feel overwhelming, then it may not be the right time for you to be stepping onto your path. Don't judge yourself or feel bad. Everything in this life has a beneficial timeline that goes with it. You can fight the timeline, but it will always be a lot of extra work. When the time is right, it will feel good and things will flow easily for you. If it already feels exciting and inspiring, then you have a place to start as you begin moving forward into your purpose-filled future.